Welcome, dear followers. In this episode, we will complete the last part of the story of Al-Zeer Salem, and we learned in the previous episode that all efforts for reconciliation between the two tribes have failed. In this episode, we will review the beginning of the war, its events, and how it ended after 40 years, but before that, do not forget, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all new. A war between Al-Zeer Salem and the Bakr tribes. So the ill-fated meeting ended and a long-term war began, in which the Bakr tribes were divided between supporters and opponents. Al-Harith ibn Abd, who was one of the most powerful knights of that time, retired from the war and said his famous saying, which later became a popular proverb among the Arabs. "This is a war which I have no camel in." As for the Taghlib tribe, the tribes of Nimr bin Khazit joined Taghlib and the war began. Al-Zeer Salem started the war and went on killing the Bakris until he almost annihilated them. His war with the Bakris consisted of several major battles, as it was not a continuous war. It was a war filled with hatred, as any meeting between Taghlibi and Bakri turned into an armed confrontation. The most prominent of the battles of Al-Zeer Salem with the Bakris. The Battle of the Day of the Tails. In this battle, Hammam bin Murrah, the brother of Jasas, was killed. Hammam was a friend of Al-Zeer Salem before the start of the war, but the war turned them into two opponents on the battlefield. The Battle of Oneza. In it, many Bakris were killed, and it is said that Jasas was killed on that day. And it was mentioned in another narration that he died as a result of a wound he sustained from a stray arrow, when the confrontation took place between him and Abu Nuwayra. So Abu Nuwayra and 10 of the men who were with him were killed, and Jasas was wounded, so he fled to his maternal uncles in the Levant, and there he died. There were other battles such as the Day of Al-Waradat and the Day of Al-Qasaibat. The war lasted for many years, during which Al-Zeer Salem killed many Bakris, so that the Bakris were resorting to tricks to end this war that almost annihilated them. Therefore, some of Bakr's chiefs went to Al-Harith bin Abd, asking him to mediate to stop this war, as Al-Harith was retiring from the war. Therefore, Al-Harith bin Abd sent a delegation to Al-Zeer Salem, including his son Bahir, and with them a letter saying, "You have killed many Bakris, and you have reached your revenge, and this is my son Bahir, either you kill him with wile, or you set him free and reconcile with the Bakris." Salem got angry and said, "This lowly one is in place of wile." He then unsheathed his sword and wanted to kill him. Imru, Al-Qais said to him, "Do not do that, for by God, a man of the mightiest men of Taghlib will be killed by him." So Salem refused but to kill him. So he stabbed him with a spear and said, "Rather, you are in the place of Wile's soul." And when the news reached Al-Harith, and he was one of the most daring and most courageous people of his time, he said, "Doesn't it console us that he was killed to reconcile between the Bakris and the Taghlibis?" So Salem sent, "But I killed him with the blade of Wile's shoe." Al-Harith got angry and called for his mare, which was called Al-Naama, so he cut off its forelock and flank its tail. Thus, Al-Harith bin Abd, along with his tribe, joined the war in the ranks of the Bakris. His entry into the war was the beginning of the end of the story of Al-Zeer Salem. The end of the story of Zeer Salem. As for the end of Salem, it began with Al-Harith bin Abd when he captured him, but due to his poor eyesight, he did not recognize him, so he said to him, "Guide me to Salem," he said. "I have my blood," and he said, "You have your blood," and he said, "I have your covenant and the covenant of your father," so he said, "Yes, you have that." He said, I am Al-Zeer Salem, I deceived you about myself, and war is a deception. Al-Harith said, reward me for what I did for you after your offense, and guide me to a match for Bahir, he said. I do not know him except Imru, Al-Qais ibn Aban, the chief of his people, and the valiant knight is that. So Al-Harith mowed the forelock of Al-Zeer Salem, then he pulled on Ibn Aban and killed him, and Salem continued to incite his people to take revenge. But he was no longer that brave knight who leads the army. The tribes had been exhausted by war, so a reconciliation was established between the two tribes. But Salem nullified it when he raided Qais bin Thalaba, and Amr bin Malik defeated him, so he captured him and did him good. As he singled out for him a house in which he receives his visitors and feasts for them as if he was with his family. One day, a Christian gave him a bottle of wine, and when he got drunk, he said verses of poetry about the wife of Omar ibn Malik. When Auf, the chief of Qais bin Thalaba, heard this, he became angry and swore that Salem would not taste a drop of water until his camel drank water. And Auf's camel did not drink water except on the seventh day. Some of his people said to him, how bad you swore, you killed Salem, and until he drank his camel, Salem died of thirst. And this is the closest novel of his death. This is the end of the hero Al-Zeer Salem, who spent his life seeking revenge and collecting skulls, until death became like life for him, and he forgot all pleasures, and lost every relative or far that was with him at the same time. And by his death his revenge pages has turned.